plan comes together. Your song leads directly to my talk, and Cheryl's reading was perfect. It's all going to tie together with a pretty little bow, and I love it when that happens. So I have a question for you. Do you ever watch Saturday Night Live? Yeah. So it's a school night for me. So I have to admit that I most often do not watch it, but every now and then I catch a recording of things. And one of my favorite characters on Saturday Night Live, she just cracks me up, is a character called Debbie Downer. Okay, so some of you know who that is, by the murmurings I can tell. Debbie Downer. Yeah. So the actress Rachel Draft started this character, I believe, in 2004, and I think her last time to appear on Saturday Night Live was 2015. But the skits are timeless. And so if you've never seen the Debbie Downer skit, just Google Debbie Downer and watch it. It's hysterical. And my favorite one is when they're at Disney World. Okay, so to set it up and to kind of catch you up if you're not familiar, there's a family of characters sitting around the Disney World table talking about their wonderful vacation that they're having. And they're talking about the fun rides, and they're talking about the food and meeting the characters or whatever. And in the midst of all the frivolity, Debbie Downer just keeps interjecting tragedy in the conversation. So she's the one that will maybe talk about why so-and-so's not with them because of some tragic thing, or she's going to warn you about the germs that you could catch on the rides, or an accident that happened at some point. She's just going to interject that Debbie Downer thing, and it's just so funny. And I think it's funny because we've all been in conversations with someone like that, right? They just refuse to see the positive side. They refuse to see the possibility of things going right. They're always going to point out how things can go wrong, and in ways that you hadn't even thought of, or in ways that are so remotely possible that and random that it's just amazing that someone could even think of that at this moment. Actually, I think news organizations purposely put stuff on the news so that Debbie Downers of the world can make notes, right? Yeah. Or maybe they just work for the news, I don't know. But we're all exposed to the same information, so isn't it interesting the things we choose to latch onto and to kind of decide to think and talk about? So maybe we haven't, or maybe we purposefully don't have someone in our social circles that is a Debbie Downer, but I think most of us have this little internal Debbie Downer that kind of lives inside of us. That little voice that reminds us that if we go to Miami, we need to remember about the Zika virus, or perhaps that if you see a bent can in the supermarket, botulism is waiting, or whatever it is. Maybe it's ptomaine, I don't even know, or you know, that they're the ones that remind you to get your wipes out on your airplane seat, all those kinds of things. Our internal Debbie Downer is appalled at the cost of gasoline and knows exactly how much it cost a year ago and is all, worked up about that. So I think the purpose of having a little internal Debbie Downer has a couple of purposes, and one of them is that perhaps they're trying, that part of it is trying to keep us safe by being hyper alert and wants to be smart enough to kind of stay one step ahead of anything that could possibly happen and help other people stay ahead of the curve. And I bring this up because to continue our monthly series about spiritual laws and how to use them, today we're going to explore what Raymond Hollowell, the author of our book that we're quoting a lot this month, calls the law of thinking. The law of thinking. There's a verse in Proverbs 23:7 that says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." As a man thinketh in his heart. I think that scripture is pointing out that it isn't only our thoughts, but also the feelings about our thoughts that really make us who we are. See, we know that we're progressive beings. In other words, we're constantly growing, and our lives are spent navigating this infinite field of possibilities, and we move about claiming what is ours and what is ours to do and be. And the speed and the trajectory of our progress in life is determined by our minds. The mind is the basic governing power of our lives. Each of us have a ruling state of mind or a predominant mental state that regulates and determines the particular experiences that we will have in our personal fate. Think about that. Our ruling state of mind co-creates our experiences. This ruling state of mind is made up of the attitudes that we each individually adopt towards things and events and life in general. Each of us have a ruling state of mind. It's the sum of the stories that we tell ourselves about everything that goes on. Ernest Holmes says this: every person is surrounded, not that one, every person is surrounded by a thought atmosphere. A thought atmosphere. This mental atmosphere is the direct result of his conscious and unconscious thought, which in its turn becomes the direct reason for and cause of that which comes into his life. A thought atmosphere surrounding you. Remember a few weeks ago when I talked about blue being positive and red being negative, right? And so what if your thought atmosphere, as Holmes likes to call it, what if your thought atmosphere was like this cloud around you and it was the color of your predominant pattern of positive or negative throughout the day? You know, what color of purple haze would you be kind of swirling around in every day? So the classic Debbie Downer, she'd just be in like a red cloud, right? So in his book, Hollowell says this. No, maybe not. If his ruling mental state is upward bound, that is, aspiring, harmonious, and positive, all his forces will be directed into constructive channels. So we direct the life force within us through our mental state. Upward bound. That's my talk title today, Upward Bound. Because I think that's what we all desire, don't we? We all want our lives to be upward bound. We want to be headed in a positive direction, always improving, forever getting sweeter and more peaceful and abundant. That's what we want. And we all want it, but sometimes we get stuck. And not necessarily in our whole lives, but in one area of our life. Like everything kind of seems to be going well, and then one little area is like spiraling the wrong direction, right? The law of thinking has some information that we can use here. If we're moving in the direction of our ruling state of mind, which we've already established, our mental attitudes, the law challenges us to seek better ideas. Ideas have their origin in our point of view or our perspective on life. So the law encourages us to seek truer and more natural points of view. Last week I pointed out that we must think in alignment with our ideals. And I don't know of a higher ideal than the one that nature puts on display for us in every moment. Because the ideal of nature is always harmonious, always abundant, always in order, always in balance. And so if we can align ourselves with a natural wisdom and know that our lives are infused with those same qualities all the time, we just have to align our thinking to it. The only thing that disrupts any of that balance and order and abundance and all of that nature has is our human thinking. Our pessimism, our Debbie Downer self just raising her head, right? Because the law of thinking is always working, always. Because we're always thinking. Our minds are in a perpetual, unlimited force operation. We are always thinking. Our power to think is inexhaustible. But we're just learning how to harness this force for our own good, for our betterment, to be upward bound. We're just learning how to do that. We're just learning that whatever we think in our minds must grow and become real. As long as we allow something to be real to us and to have meaning to us, we are putting our energy into it. We are nurturing it, we're feeding it, we're watering it, we're keeping it alive, and it must naturally grow. It's the law. So in many ways, and you said this, in many ways, your thoughts are your prayers. Your thoughts are your prayers. Whatever you spend your time thinking about, you're kind of saying, okay, this is what I want more of. This is what I want more of. So what are you thinking about? You know, you might be putting on a good front, and you might be saying the right thing, and you might be putting a positive spin on a situation and keeping your happy face on. But in the back of your mind, you've heard that phrase, in the back of my mind, I was thinking the whole time, well, guess what? The law works on the back of the mind and the front of the mind. The law works on all of it. So Ernest Holmes was very influenced by a teacher named Thomas Troward. And this is how he describes it in his way of writing. He says, our thought of anything forms a spiritual prototype of it, thus constituting a nucleus or center of attraction for all conditions necessary to its eventual externalization by a law of growth inherent in the prototype itself. Say it again? Say it again. Thomas Troward says, our thought of anything, whatever we think about, forms a spiritual prototype of it. A prototype is a mold for it or a pattern of it, thus constituting a nucleus or center of attraction for all conditions necessary to make it externalized for its eventual externalization by a law of growth inherent in the prototype itself. So in the seed, the mold contains the seed or to make it happen. So I got to wondering, is the law of thinking just a science of mind thing? Or do other spiritual traditions talk about it too? Is it just us? So here's what I found. In the Buddhist tradition, Shantideva says, mind is the seed of the world's joy and the remedy for its suffering. He goes on to say, Buddhist philosophy centers on the power of mind. Our perceptual habits can imprison us. Yet when the nature of mind is understood, then our perceptions can also liberate us. We cannot always change circumstances, but we can always change our minds. Abu Amina Elias, a writer in the tradition of Islam, puts it this way. In June of 2016, he wrote this: in the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful, our thoughts have a powerful ability to determine our feelings and emotional states and ultimately affect how we behave, for better or worse. Islam teaches us to direct the act of reflection or deep thought towards the signs of Allah. Allah is their name for God. To Allah, the names and attributes of Allah, to His blessings and wonders, to hope in the hereafter, and to optimism. By controlling our thought processes in a positive manner, we can increase the effectiveness of our prayers and worship, as well as relieve ourselves from the anger, depression, and anxieties that worldly thoughts induce. The wisdom of Islam. And finally, in looking in the Hindu writings, Moksha Gita wrote, the Guru said, the mind has the power of creating or undoing the whole universe in the twinkling of an eye. I love Hindu writings, they're so poetic. Slay this mind through control of its fluctuation. The power of the mind is indescribable and unimaginable. Terrific powers and psychic abilities are the expressions of the mind when it nears the all-powerful consciousness, which is the very existence of power itself. This purified mind has all the powers of the Supreme Shakti. The mind is more powerful than all the weapons of the world put together. Wouldn't we love to know that in our world? It can do and undo things in a moment, for it is consciousness in its essence. All yogic powers are due to the expansion of the mind in the higher and subtler regions, which are swayed over by it being included within the domain of its activities. When the mind reaches the highest states of conscious expansion, then the goal of thought is near the reach. That is the glory of the majesty of the self. Self with a capital S, of the self. Hindu. See, we know that our philosophy and its founder, Ernest Holmes, was incorporating wisdom from all traditions. And that's one of the things that I love, from teachings around the world. And the truth of the power of our minds, the power of our thinking, appears in all these writings too. But what about current studies about about the power of our mind and the law of thinking. In a 2010 scientific study, this is interesting, it's reported that the average American, that's all of you guys and me, spend 47% of their waking life mind wandering. That is not attending to the task at hand. That's what they're defining as mind wandering. And these periods of mind wandering were accompanied by reports of unhappiness. In other words, science has shown that a wandering, unfocused mind is an unhappy mind. See, what I think is maybe our tendency is when our mind begins to wander, we go right to that Debbie Downer stuff, right? But we can learn to control our minds and keep our attention in the present moment on the task at hand. Studies have shown that when we're in this moment, in the flow of this moment, such experiences are highly positive. That's why we stress spiritual practice, like affirming and prayer and meditation, because it's keeping us in this moment, practicing mindfulness, taking this moment and attending to it. And when we do that, our lives will become more positive and upward bound. So how do we apply all this stuff? Laine, you're telling us all this stuff, and how do we work with it? How do we work with this power to improve our daily lives? Hollowell says, if we have any problems, it's because we're not controlling our ideas. So to start to apply this law, I just really, right here, right now, I want you to think of a problem. Think of a problem that you're currently experiencing, or perhaps an area of your life that you're just kind of all over the place about, right? A situation that you would like to go in a more positive direction. Think about that right now. Applying this law is captured by a phrase, a 3-step process that you're all familiar with. On your marks, get set, go. On your marks. The first step is to get on your mark. All right? So metaphysically, this means we're going to make a clear decision. Okay? So think about a runner getting on his mark. When a runner gets on his mark, he is communicating to his coach, to the officials, to the other racers, and most importantly to himself, I'm running this race. I'm going. I'm going. I'm here on this starting line. I'm on my mark. I'm leaving any other path behind. I'm going down this stretch of asphalt right now. I'm in. All right? So with your problem in your mind that you're wanting to solve, you have to get on your mark. Get on your mark. You have to declare to yourself, to God, to the world, to anybody who will listen, things are about to change. I am not going to be standing in this position very much longer. I'm headed that way. Right? You have to choose. I'm finished messing around with this such and such. I'm on my mark. Today's the day. Today's the day. 5 minutes ago, I may have been wishy-washy, but right now, I'm going. I'm on my mark. I'm getting this problem solved, or this wall climbed, or this relationship fixed, or this situation transformed, but right here, right now, I am on my mark. Think about it. Isn't that a powerful first step? So how can you declare that you're on your mark with this particular issue that you've got in your mind? How can you eliminate any other possible path and say, this is where I'm going, I'm taking aim at my destination? How can you let someone know to hold you accountable? I'm going. Time me. I'm on my way, right? I'm on my mark. Because once you've stepped on your mark, it's time for the second step. On your mark, get set. Get set. How do you get set? When a runner is getting set, what does he do? He adjusts his hands on the asphalt, on the track, he pulls at his shorts, makes sure that they're all good, shakes his muscles out, right? He looks down the lines that lead to his destination. He readies his mind for the race ahead. Sometimes you'll see an athlete genuflect, say a little prayer, kiss a necklace, go silent, go inside, whatever. He's thinking only of the finish lines. He's aligning his thoughts to what he's doing. He's thinking only of success. He clears away all the distractions, anything that's got in his way. And he senses whatever tightness and shakes it out. He stills himself. He's set. So how do you get set with your current issue? Especially in your thinking. What thoughts must you shake loose to prepare yourself to go down this journey of change? This mental muscle's got to be engaged. How do you distance yourself from whatever Debbie Downer might be around about this particular thing? You got to adjust your shorts, make sure you're comfortable, ready to go, ready to make this change. Most importantly, how do you discipline your thoughts to only think of success? Only think of the final change you wish to see in your experience. How do you invite the divine to be a part of your process? That's what we're here for. How do you write a prayer request on a little card and turn it in, have other people knowing the truth for you? Because the next step's a big one. So on your mark, it said, go. It's time to start moving. It's time to leave your starting point and head in the direction of your desired outcome. It's time to get so busy focusing on the solution of your dreams that you're not thinking about anything else. You speak only of success. You think only of success. You act in ways that only support your success. You flat out go. If a fear arises, you simply affirm your destination and say, I'm going. Keep moving. If an idea comes in that doesn't align with that goal, you're like, no, not now, sister. I'm going this way. That thought does not serve me. I'm going to this. See, God wants you to succeed. The universal energy supports your changing. It's the law. We learned this week, resources follow commitment. When I'm committed, resources will come in, because what will happen as you move along your path, people will fall into step with you and give you support along the way. You'll get a great idea from an unexpected place that will move you a little bit further. You'll be delighted by pieces of information that will just kind of mysteriously appear when you need them. Runners will tell you that sometimes out of the blue a thought will come in and it'll just push them forward, especially someone running a marathon. They'll get inspiration from something along the way. But none of these things appear evident when you step onto your mark. When you look down that long path, none of these things, none of these ideas are in place. Today it may look like the finish line is years down the road, and it may be. But that's why I teach you about spiritual laws, because these laws are impersonal and they work for everyone. They're yours to use consciously to move your life in an upward bound way. You can completely trust the law to be there, to respond to your efforts. It's the law. And all of it starts with thinking. It starts with a thought. It starts with an upward bound thought, an evolutionary thought, a thought of a better destination from where you sit right now. The law is change your thinking, change your life. On your marks, get set, go. And so it is.